What if everything you know about good and evil isn't just slightly off but completely wrong? That's not a small claim. That's saying the very foundation of how we judge people, build societies, punish criminals, reward heroes, and define ourselves might be based on a giant illusion. And if that's true, then we're not just misinformed, we're living inside a system of thought that blinds us to the truth of the human experience. From childhood, we're conditioned to believe in a moral binary. Good people do good things. Bad people do bad things. Heroes save the day. Villains try to destroy it. We're told to strive to be one and avoid being the other, and we internalize these categories like they're laws of physics. But here's the twist: what if good and evil aren't absolute truths, but man-made concepts shaped by culture, fear, power, and context? What if morality isn't some divine scoreboard in the sky, but a fluid, evolving lens we use to impose order on human chaos? The more I've studied philosophy, history, neuroscience, and real human lives, the more I've come to believe that our traditional understanding of good and evil is not just simplistic, it's dangerously misleading. Because real life is not a Marvel movie.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
In real life, the villain thinks he's the hero. In real life, the hero has shadows. In real life, people do evil things for reasons that made sense to them, and people do good things for reasons that are selfish, prideful, or even manipulative. So what is morality, if not a cosmic scoreboard? Is it just social agreement? Is it biological instincts dressed up in ethics? Is it an evolutionary trick to keep tribes from killing each other? Or is it something deeper, something spiritual, yet still misunderstood? Let's take a hard look at ourselves. Every one of us has done something wrong in someone else's eyes. Every one of us has justified something that hurt another person. And yet we still like to think of ourselves as good people. Why? Because we judge ourselves by our intentions and others by their actions. But what if we're all just negotiating our place on a moral spectrum that no one fully understands? Think about this. In ancient times, slavery was considered acceptable. In some cultures, honor killings still happen. In others, eating certain animals is unthinkable, but eating others is fine. Across time and geography, what's evil in one place is normal in another. So how can we talk about morality like it's a fixed truth when it shifts like sand under our feet? Here's the uncomfortable reality. Morality is not universal. It's not objective. It's not handed down from the clouds. It's a human invention, a deeply useful one, to be clear, but a constructed one nonetheless. And like every human invention, it reflects the limits and biases of its creators. Even the word evil is a label we slap on what we fear, what we can't control, or what we don't want to understand. It shuts down inquiry. It says, that person is just bad, and moves on. But real evil, the kind that devastates lives, starts wars, corrupts institutions, almost always comes from people who believe they're doing good. The inquisitors thought they were saving souls. The terrorists think they're defending truth. The tyrants think they're restoring order. That means the most dangerous evil isn't the kind that knows it's cruel, it's the kind that smiles while it does it, believing it's righteous. So what does that say about us? About the good things we do? About the causes we support? About the people we cancel, punish, or condemn? Could it be we're sometimes the villain in someone else's story, even when we think we're the hero in our own? That's not a reason to stop caring about right and wrong. It's a reason to start caring more deeply, more wisely, more consciously. Morality, in this light, becomes not a weapon but a question. Not a badge of honor, but a compass to be constantly recalibrated. And that takes humility. It takes the courage to ask, what if I'm wrong about who's good and who's evil? What if the person I hate most is broken, not wicked? What if the person I admire most is more flawed than I want to admit? And what if I am more complex than either label allows? Carl Jung famously said, "The line dividing good and evil cuts through the heart of every human being." That quote matters more now than ever. Because we live in a world that thrives on division, left vs. right, good vs. bad, us vs. them. But if Jung is right, then the real battle isn't between groups. It's inside each of us. It's between our higher self and our ego, between compassion and fear, between truth and comfort. And that battle doesn't end. It's fought in small, invisible moments, when you choose to respond with kindness instead of sarcasm, when you admit you were wrong, when you stand up for someone who can't defend themselves. That's where morality lives, not in grand gestures, but in daily grit. So next time you're tempted to label someone as evil, pause. Ask, what led them to this moment? What pain are they carrying? What story are they living in? And when you're tempted to call yourself good, ask, what am I ignoring? What part of myself am I hiding? What harm have I done without even noticing? These questions aren't comfortable, but they're real. And they might just be the start of a new kind of morality. One that doesn't divide the world into saints and sinners, but sees every one of us as a work in progress. Because maybe morality isn't about picking sides, it's about building deeper awareness. And maybe good and evil aren't destinations, they're directions on a map we're all still trying to draw. So the next time someone tells you they know what's right and wrong with absolute certainty, be skeptical. Not because nothing matters, but because everything does. And real morality begins not with judgment, but with attention, the willingness to look closer, to sit in discomfort, to ask better questions, and to grow, however imperfectly, toward wisdom. That's the journey. That's the challenge. And that's why everything you've been told about good and evil might not be evil, but it's definitely incomplete. The mirror of the abyss, why true morality begins with self-confrontation, not judgment. If part 1 shook your understanding of good and evil, then prepare yourself, because this part takes us deeper into the abyss. And this abyss doesn't hate you. It doesn't love you either. The universe, in all its vast indifference, doesn't care about your morality. And strangely, that's not a curse. It's a liberation. Because once you stop expecting the cosmos to reward your goodness or punish your wickedness, you start to understand morality for what it truly is, not a cosmic scoreboard, but a human responsibility. We are not moral because the stars demand it. We are moral because we choose to be despite the stars' silence. From childhood, many of us are taught that morality is backed by divine justice, karma, judgment, heaven, hell. But if we're honest, that idea starts to collapse when we step into the real world. We see good people suffer and cruel people succeed. We see injustice go unanswered and virtue go unrewarded. And whether we admit it or not, we begin to wonder, if the universe doesn't balance the scales, then why be good at all? But that question is the wrong one. The real question isn't why be good if no one's watching. It's who do I become when I choose good, even when no one is? Because morality isn't about pleasing a deity or earning points. It's about shaping the kind of consciousness you inhabit. It's about the architecture of your soul. When you lie, cheat, or betray, even if you're never caught, something inside you changes. A fracture opens. A dissonance begins to hum beneath the surface. You feel it not because you fear punishment, but because you've become misaligned with truth. And truth, whether you believe in God or not, has a gravity all its own. So what happens when we realize the universe is morally neutral? That it doesn't care if you're a saint or a monster. It means that morality is a choice made in the face of meaninglessness. And that's where it becomes sacred, not because it's enforced by a higher power, but because it's not. Imagine the courage it takes to be kind in a world that doesn't require it. Imagine the strength it takes to forgive when vengeance would be easier. Imagine the discipline to tell the truth when lies would serve your ambition. These are not acts of obedience, they are acts of creation. You are creating morality where none is guaranteed. You are choosing a higher path, not because the universe rewards it, but because you know it shapes who you are at your most essential level. But let's go deeper. What if the universe's indifference is not a rejection of morality, but an invitation to define it for ourselves? What if, in giving us no guidance, it's handing us the terrifying freedom to create meaning in the void? That's the existentialists' view, Nietzsche, Camus, Sartre. They didn't believe in a cosmic moral order, but they didn't become nihilists either. Instead, they said, life has no inherent meaning. So what are you going to do with that? That's the real test. Not whether you can follow rules written in a book, but whether you can stand in the moral wilderness and build a compass from scratch. That's where real morality begins, not in obedience, but in authorship. Not in submission, but in sovereignty. And here's where things get uncomfortable. If morality is something we create, not something we receive, then we are not just responsible for our actions, we are responsible for our frameworks. We can't just say, that's what I was taught. We can't just blame culture or tradition or upbringing. We have to ask, is this moral code I live by actually just? Actually compassionate? Actually wise? And if it's not, we have to change it. That's the burden of freedom. And yes, it's heavy, but it's also beautiful. Because it means you are not a pawn in someone else's moral story. You are the author of your own. Now let me ask you something radical. What if morality isn't about being right at all? What if it's about being real? That doesn't mean doing whatever you want. It means aligning your actions with your deepest awareness. It means living in integrity, not with someone else's rules, but with your own highest insight. That's not easy. It means you have to know yourself. You have to confront your ego, your fear, your shadow. And most people don't want to do that. It's easier to adopt a ready-made morality, religious, political, cultural, and follow it like a script. But scripts can be outdated. Scripts can be corrupted. Scripts can be used to justify anything from genocide to oppression to cruelty. And they have, over and over again. So the real moral work isn't memorizing commandments, it's waking up. It's peeling away layers of conditioning and asking, what is truly right? And how do I know? And let's not ignore the hardest part. Sometimes doing what's right won't feel good. Sometimes it will cost you comfort, status, admiration. Sometimes it will make your life harder. So why do it? Because the cost of betraying your own soul is higher. Because the pain of living out of alignment is worse than the pain of standing alone. And because, at the end of the day, you have to live with yourself, not the version others see, but the one you know in the mirror, in the dark, in the silence. That's where real morality lives, not in judgment, but in self-confrontation. Not in performance, but in presence. And ironically, when you stop obsessing over being good, you become more free to do good. Because you're not doing it to win approval or avoid guilt. You're doing it because it's true to who you want to be. You're doing it because it feels right, even when it's hard. You're doing it because you've looked into the void and decided to plant something beautiful there. That's not weakness. That's power. That's defiance in the face of entropy. That's light in the face of darkness. So no, the universe doesn't care about your morality. But you should, because you are the one who has to carry the weight of your life. You are the one who has to sleep with your choices. You are the one who will grow into what you repeatedly choose. And that growth or decay is entirely up to you. You can't blame God. You can't blame fate. You can't even blame society. Not forever. At some point, you have to become the adult in your own moral myth. You have to decide what kind of character you're going to play in this strange, beautiful, terrifying story of life. And if that sounds overwhelming, good. It should. Because morality is not about being comfortable. It's about being awake. It's not about being right. It's about being real. And it's not about what the universe wants from you. It's about what you want to leave behind in the universe. The mirror of the abyss, why true morality begins with self-confrontation, not judgment. If we've accepted by now that morality isn't written in the stars, not inscribed on stone tablets by the universe itself, then the question becomes, where does it begin? And the answer, as uncomfortable as it is transformative, is this: it begins in the mirror. Not the mirror on your bathroom wall, but the mirror of your inner world. That quiet, terrifying space where you can't lie to yourself, even when you desperately want to. True morality doesn't start with judging others. It starts with confronting yourself. And most of us, if we're honest, spend our entire lives avoiding that confrontation. We build elaborate identities to protect ourselves from the raw truth of who we are: our fears, our selfishness, our contradictions, our capacity for cruelty. We point fingers at evil people because it's easier than facing the part of us that could become them under the right conditions. But if you want to talk about good and evil in any meaningful way, the first thing you have to do is stop outsourcing the problem. You are not exempt. You are not the final judge. You are not the hero by default. You are a human being, and that means you carry within you the full spectrum of potential, from saint to tyrant, from healer to destroyer. The question is not whether the darkness exists in you. It does. The question is whether you've met it, acknowledged it, and integrated it, or whether you're pretending it belongs only to others. Carl Jung called this the shadow, the parts of ourselves we repress, deny, or disown. And the more we deny it, the more it controls us. Every time you find yourself hating someone irrationally, every time you feel morally superior, every time you dehumanize a stranger online or secretly enjoy someone else's downfall, you are meeting your shadow. And most people flinch in that moment. They project. They double down. They say, no, that's not me. That's them. I would never. But the truth is, you would, under the right pressures, in the right circumstances. History shows us this again and again, ordinary people becoming complicit in horrors because they never took the time to understand their own darkness. They thought evil was something alien, something out there, and that blindness made them vulnerable to becoming its instrument. So if you want to build a morality that's real, solid, unshakable, you have to go inward. You have to stop moralizing and start maturing. You have to sit with your shadow long enough to understand its voice, its needs, its wounds. Because only then can you begin to choose differently, not from fear or shame, but from wholeness. And here's the paradox. The people who confront their own darkness are the least likely to project it onto others. They're slower to judge, quicker to empathize. They know how fragile the line is between hero and villain, so they stay humble. They stay curious. They ask questions instead of casting stones. And that's where true moral strength comes from, not from certainty, but from self-awareness. Not from purity, but from integration. Because when you've done the inner work, when you've faced your own capacity for harm, you don't need to pretend anymore. You don't need to perform goodness. You can simply be good, not as an act, but as a choice made moment by moment, rooted in deep understanding. But this kind of morality is not glamorous. It doesn't earn applause. It doesn't go viral. It happens in silence, in moments no one sees. It's choosing not to lie when it would be easy. It's choosing to forgive when you've been hurt. It's choosing to listen when you want to argue. It's choosing to take responsibility when blaming would feel better. These acts are invisible to the world, but they change you. They shape your character like water carves stone, slowly, silently, relentlessly. And over time, they build something that no law, no religion, no ideology can give you: inner authority. The ability to look yourself in the eye and know who you are, not because someone told you, but because you've earned that clarity through honest self-examination. And this is where we circle back to the beginning. Everything you know about good and evil is wrong because you were taught to look outward, when the real work was always inward. We were taught to divide people into us and them, when the real division runs through each of us. We were taught to obey and conform, when the real moral path is to awaken and take ownership. And until we stop outsourcing our moral compass to culture, religion, politics, or tribe, we will never truly know what it means to be good, not performatively, but authentically. Because goodness that comes from fear of punishment is not goodness. It's compliance. And goodness that comes from a desire to appear good is not morality. It's vanity. Real morality is raw. It's messy. It's forged in the fire of confronting yourself and choosing to rise anyway. So what do we do with this? How do we live differently once we've seen through the illusion? We begin by slowing down, by noticing the moments when we want to judge and pausing to ask, what does this say about me? We begin by taking radical responsibility not just for our actions, but for our intentions, our assumptions, our unconscious patterns. We begin by listening more than we speak, by questioning more than we preach. We begin by getting honest with ourselves, even when it hurts. Especially when it hurts. Because that pain, that discomfort, that's the doorway to growth. That's the signal that something deeper is asking to be seen. And maybe, just maybe, if enough of us do this, if enough of us stop pretending we're on the side of absolute good and start becoming morally conscious and morally humble humans, then we can build a new kind of world. One not based on judgment, but on understanding. One not based on punishment, but on transformation. One where we don't need to label people as evil to feel safe, because we have the courage to face the evil within and choose something better. So no, this isn't easy. This is the hardest work there is. It requires everything: your honesty, your patience, your willingness to stand alone in your truth. But if you do it, if you really do it, you'll find something on the other side that no ideology can give you. You'll find peace. Not the peace of ignorance, but the peace of integration. The peace of knowing that you've seen the darkness and chosen the light. Not once, but again and again and again. Because morality isn't a destination. It's a practice, a discipline, a way of walking through the world with eyes wide open and heart rooted in compassion. And that's what we need now, not new labels for who's good and who's evil, but people brave enough to look in the mirror and say, here I am, all of me, and I choose today to become something better.